A leader who abandons himself in pursuit of success eventually succeeds at losing himself. And this was my truth, my reality for many years. I just wasn't aware of it. And I was reflecting last night. Today is Wednesday, the 11th of March, 2026. And last night I was thinking about how, as leaders, we have some great accomplishments. Like personally, I am a family physician here in the Bahamas. I also am the immediate past chair of an international group of young family doctors belonging to the Global Organization of Family Doctors. And before I completed my medical residency, I was already enrolled for a master's degree, and I have since completed my master's in leadership in healthcare, but it wasn't always that way. And I feel like it wasn't even that long ago. So, early August last year, 2025, I found myself in this beautiful hotel suite, this resort suite that belonged to the leader of this conference that I was attending. And the room was filled with other amazing, like-minded persons who were eager to jump in on this opportunity for Q&A, for personalized coaching, So we had the opportunity to ask this leader some questions and get coached on whatever we were going through. And for me, I knew that this was it. I had to get on this list. I got on the list, y'all. So I was number 10 in the lineup. And I think it was about 12 persons, who raised their hand that they actually had a question, and everyone else, just wanted to glean from the wisdom that was about to be passed, around in the room. And I waited my turn and I thought, as each person went ahead of me, I was like, oh, yeah, that was a really good question. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, but I couldn't wait. I was like on pins and needles. I was sitting on the ground, like the room was packed, and I just was waiting. And finally, the leader was like, okay, who's number 10? Who's going to be last? So I thought, uh-oh, well, what about like 11 and 12? And I remember that, you know, the person looked at the person who was number 11 or 12. I don't even remember. All I knew was I was number 10. And usually I don't often push to, I just don't push to the point of where like I put myself first. I used to not put myself first. That's not what we're taught, right? So which is why what I realized, leadership is human first. And I shared that in a previous video that I did yesterday. This is why this is so near and dear to me, because it's like I am on this journey with you as well. So I never put myself first. So usually I would be like, oh, it's okay. You could go. You could. But I was like, no, no. I was number 10. Well, I didn't like express this outwardly to come off like a crazy person. So I was like, I was number 10. I had number 10. And the beautiful thing, thankfully, to the other lady who I did know from even the year before. She said, well, actually, my question was answered, so I'm good. I'm like, this is happening. It's my turn. This is going to be amazing. So I thought, this has to be really good. So I thought like how to properly word it so that, I get what exactly I wanted and needed. And this leader, she is like mind-blowingly amazing. And I was so excited. So I stood up and I asked my question. And the question was around how is it that I can connect to prospective clients in order for them to choose me and say yes to working with me when I know that the work that I do, which, is supporting leaders, restoring them physically, but also helping to sustain them along their leadership life, so to say. How do I get them to, how do I connect with them? How do I get them to say yes? And I was like, ready for the answer, right? And this amazing leader looked at me and she said, "You have to share your stories." And I'm like, well, I didn't do that. I'm like, that's it? I, that's what I thought in my head. I was like, that's it? I was like, no, I wanted like some amazing big formula. I wanted something, y'all. It was like, man, I was number 10. I was the cutoff point, apparently, that I didn't even know. And it was like, it's like, okay. And she went on, she shared a little more by saying, so it's by sharing the stories that humanizes us and allows persons to just get to know us even before they meet us and get to say yes. And I thought, okay, you know, who am I to go against or not take heed to this amazing leader's advice? So here it was, yeah, I was the last person, and it was like, all right, y'all ain't gotta go home, but y'all gotta get up out of my suite type of thing. So I I'm not you I'm very polite. I am very respectful of people and their time and their space. So it was like, okay, you ain't gotta tell me twice. I was up and getting on my way out the room. And on the way out the room, I came across someone else who I had met maybe about 2 years ago, someone who I respect and love deeply. And she stopped me and she said, "Okay, how was it? How was that for you? Because we saw your face." I've been told that I have a really expressive face, apparently. So I told her, I said, "Well, it definitely was not what I was expecting or hoping to hear. I really wanted something a bit more, I guess, elaborate." Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Brew, and I am a high performer. I am a high achiever. I, so just in case, so you can see where I'm coming from. It's like I'm very task and goal oriented. So I wanted to have like, even if it was like a 100 point checklist to say, okay, yeah, check, did it, so that at the end of this checklist, I would know that I would have the results that I so badly desired. And here it was, that was the furthest thing from getting something so structured. It was like, ugh. But anyway, so I shared that, and in talking with her at the door, the doorway, she was saying, "Oh, you have such a great story, and you're so articulate, and you share very well, but most time it's like what you're saying." And this is me being vulnerable with you guys right now. This is me being transparent and truthful with what my journey has looked like in happy healthy transform, my brand, where we are all about supporting leaders because we deserve it. So when she said that, she said, "I have a great story. I speak very well and what have you, sort of thing. But what I say, we don't feel it here." And I thought, maybe the reason why I'm finding it difficult in connecting with prospective clients is because I'm not connected with myself. And she was like, "Oh, that right there, that it. That is gold. You just said it. That's it." And as soon as the words had left my mouth, ugh, it was like the air got knocked out of my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't believe I had just said that, but it was like one of those moments where I was thinking out loud and I was like in a stunned state at that time. Right then, another person who was helping to clear the room, who I also met like some years ago, sort of thing, was like, all right, y'all, gets to step and leave, 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 leave. Because it was like really a nice socializing moment after the Q&A. And I was like, okay, bye, gotta go, bye. And I used the distraction of the high positive energy in the room to flee the room immediately. And I remember walking down the hall, like I was power walking, and I made it like down the end of this super long hall that finally had like a bend to go around the corner. I looked behind me. I realized that there was no one coming out the room. It was only me. Talk about your rule follower. Uh, and I stood by the windows that had, like this amazing view. And I just stopped by that corner and I started to cry. I'm talking about like deep soul digging well type cry. And I could not contain myself. I could not stop it. I wasn't even concerned about stopping it. I just was like, I can't believe I said what I just said in the room to my friend back there. And I thought, the reason why it was so emotional for me at that time is because I've been on this journey some years back where I was being intentional about loving myself and not being so caught up on just not paying attention to myself where I've always been great at academics from kindergarten. I was an early starter in the school system, the traditional school system. I went to university at the age of 16. I mean, I wasn't like some star genius or anything like that, but like I could handle myself. And so yeah, I came to a point where I realized like, hey, I don't love myself. Another moment of vulnerability. I didn't hate myself. I just obviously the way that I was not tuning into myself, it was like I don't love myself. Okay, realization. So I got to a point where it's like, okay, hey, I notice you. I say, hi, you're so pretty. Don't mind me, I'm not vegan. But I got to a place where I could say, yeah, I love myself. And so here it was, 8 months ago, saying that now. I'm like, I love myself. And yet I left myself behind. And I didn't even realize it until just then when my friend had said, the lack of connection from, I guess brain, mouth to my heart. That wrecked me, all. That wrecked me. And I isolated immediately, despite being advised from the beginning of the conference, do not isolate yourself. Like, I isolated and I was just bawling, bawling, bawling. And I felt like I couldn't breathe. So I left my hotel room where I had retreated to. And I went to get something to eat. And there were tables where some of us at the conference were, just hanging out and what have you sort of thing. And eventually someone noticed me way in the corner in, in like a not so well lit area. And I was just like, oh man, I have to, in a way, contain myself so that I could exist amongst other people. And I'm just being fully transparent with you right now because I want to ask, like, hey, has there ever been a time that you, you know, were so selfless that you neglected a moment where you just needed to release in a therapeutic kind of way, all because you want to be mm, politically, no, not, it's not politically correct, where you want to be unoffensive to others, or you don't want to bring your problems, and be the wet blanket and whatever sort of thing. And with that not being my personality by default, I definitely do not want to go amongst persons who I was building rapport with to be that kind of person. So I held it together and I was there telling them, I was like, guys, yo, when she said that to me, when, I was a wreck. And I was saying that, and I'm just like emotionless expressions, just like bland face. And again, I was told before I have such a vivid, emotionally vivid face, right? With my expressions. And I just was like, guys, I was wrecked. And it was like, still, that wasn't even transferring to the external. So it was like, darn it, I did it again. Here it is. I'm saying something and I'm not connecting with heart. I should be like, oh, I'm wrecked, something like that. And the following day, I had the opportunity to unpack some more with the support of the room, what was going on. And yeah, I realized that I wasn't connected to myself. I didn't even remember at what point along this pursuit for success and what have you that I left myself behind, and I just like brew by, like right now the saying is boy bye. So I was like brew by and just like whatever it takes, whatever it takes, whatever it takes, we're gonna do this. And I came, I decided to step back and I said, I never want to get to a place again where I abandon myself. I'm a character, you guys. And so it's like, I don't want to ever abandon myself, especially in pursuit of success. And I thought, why is it that we can't have both? Why can't we have success and still have, being authentic to who we are and feeling safe and comfortable to express outwardly in the world who we are? You know, I don't want to say many, but we have a tendency, especially as leaders, to put on masks because we have to come across as the person who has it all together. Right? When we think about leaders, when we see leaders, leaders tend to have everything together. They look like they don't need help with anything. Oh, she has it all together. Hey, I need help with something, sort of thing. So at that time, on my way back from, oh, sorry, I missed this part. On my way back from dinner that very night where I was so wrecked, I came across yet another person who was at the conference and just chatting again. She was like, hey, how was that? Like, we saw your face. And I shared with her, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so wrecked. I realized that I wasn't connected with myself when I was debriefing with another conference attendee at the door on the way out of the room. And, she invited me she started asking me a lot of questions that was super painful to just realize I had no answers to at that moment. Like, if I remember, some of the major ones that really felt like my heart was just, I felt it was like a sharp pain in the center of my chest, not like heartburn, but like almost like could I be having a mini heart attack type of thing. Mm, that's something else I got to share with you guys on another talk. I want to stay focused. And one of the questions was, what makes me happy? What makes me joyful? And I thought at the time, I was like, I really can't answer that right now. I don't know. And I was like, I can't believe I just said that. But I know I'm not alone, right? Someone out there. So I was like, I've lost connection to myself. I no longer know what makes me happy. So yet alone, I'm not doing things that make me happy because every day outside of my work hours, I'm about like, how could I advance in my career? How could I move to the next level? How could I move to the next level? I'll worry about that other stuff. Well, I wasn't even aware of it, but it's like, that stuff isn't important to me now. Uh, Eventually, we exchanged contacts, and after we all finished the conference experience and we went home, and I connected with my friend who was asking me, when last were you happy or so, and she said, okay, let's get super simple, and this is what I want to leave with you. So she walked me through a scenario where she said, think back, even if it was in childhood, where you were so happy and so carefree and so just excited. You felt so good inside. And I thought, and I was like, okay, again, kind of rough because I was in like a slum at the time, but I came up with the moments when we celebrated birthdays in my household as a child. And what we did was we would buy I'm totally gonna butcher this, the Martinelli's. I think that's how you say the brand name. The Martinelli's sparkling apple cider. And it was just so luxurious of an experience for me, even as a kid. So my mom would pull out the 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 glass wine goblets. I had my special goblet. It was definitely kid, it was very it was narrow, but it was short. It wasn't as fancy as the ones that my parents, my brother got to drink out of. It was smaller capacity, but I didn't realize the apple cider would be cool. So I especially loved when it was my birthday celebration. So everyone always got, apple cider to have with dinner and then, a cake. And it would be so cool because it would be in the fridge, for some time. And there's the cork. So you take off the little wire housing thing at the top. You pop the cork. Woo! It's so exciting. I can wait. And, you know, they would pour the apple cider in the glasses, and I just love to see the bubbles, the golden color of the cider, the condensation starting to form on the glass, and then the bubbles they were gorgeous. Perfect little orbs just floating and rising to the top. Oh, please excuse me. And when I finally went to take a sip, which wasn't too long, I could not contain myself. And it was so luxurious. Like the sensation at the back of your throat when you were swallowing, it was like such a crispness. I can't put it into words. I was so happy. And then I would beg my way into getting a little more if it wasn't my birthday. But if it's my birthday, I get to have two glasses. Well, my parents quickly learned that I had a healthy appetite. So, yeah, and I thought like, yeah, even now just talking about it, I'm just like, "Oof, yes, let's go back there." So she said, "Okay, here's what to do. Let's recreate that moment where, I was so happy." And so she told me to like buy a special wine glass and that I would use only for this particular activity, to get the bottle of apple cider, make sure it's super cold, all that jazz sort of thing. And she said, okay, pour yourself, set the scene where it's super relaxed, chill, So what I did was I lit a candle and I had like dim lighting and I just had my favorite color is yellow, my favorite yellow It was like a canary yellow post-it block, a nice pretty pen. And I put, what? Oh, I'm giving it away. And she said, pour yourself a glass and then sit with it. Don't immediately drink it. Just stare into the glass, look at the bubbles, and ask yourself, what gives me apple cider level joy? And I thought, okay, I could do that. That sounds cool. So I did that. And, one by one, I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I started to even discover things that were deeper down in my consciousness about what makes me joyful. And I had this great, amazing, intentional opportunity to not only think about it, but write it down, document it, sort of thing. And that felt so great, you guys. Oh, and so I started to do it like once a week. I haven't done it recently because as I started to reconnect with what makes me feel joy and not just happy, because happy, it's like it depends on what happens. So I wanted to really dive into cultivating joy and, for the most part, existing in a state of joy or a sense of just calm tranquility, which is my usual baseline, throughout my day, even, when high stressful events happen and, or, you get something that caused you to get angry, sort of thing. It's like, just for the most part, just remain in this joyful state. I started to, and then thinking about calories and not wanting to end up in like this state of hyperglycemia, so high levels of sugar in your blood and getting like pre-diabetes and diabetes. So not wanting to go there, I said, let me think of ways I could have this, I call them Brew Connect. So these sessions, 30 minutes, I didn't even have like too long where I set a timer and it's like I have to, I'm not going to get distracted and do anything else. But I started to ask myself some questions, just one question that I would set like before the session started so that I could rediscover who I am to my core before I became a doctor, before I had to abandon all of my hobbies and my interests in medical school, and definitely more so as an intern, when it was like I lived at the hospital. Like literally, I just went home to shower. Sometimes I went by a shower who lived like closer to the hospital than me. And I was there very long, even when I wasn't on call, because I was so traumatized by the rigorousness of the system. Anyway, I started asking myself these reflection prompt questions, and they were simple, but I mean, in the time that we exist with AI, it could be as simple as going on AI, explaining a scenario and saying, hey, help me come up with a list of questions. But it would be simple questions like, hey, what is it that really makes me feel on fire, like the good type, on fire and excited for life and just like, oh, let's go, like, and I was like, what gives me that feeling? Not just the joy, like, oh, I'm so happy. And I would just sit and write that down and think, what is it that I need to feel like I had a fulfilled day. Uh, Even though I don't overly like to focus on more negative, associated questions, but sometimes it's important to know too. What is it that drains me? Like, what is it that sucks the life out of me, like energy level wise? And I wrote those down, and I now, I started to keep them somewhere, well, in the notes on my phone. I still use my favorite color post-it note because it's like it makes me happy, just yellow. I just love this sunflower, maybe it's like, so I know that wasn't like a sentence just now. But I keep them in a note in my phone, so even when I am up and about in the midst of my day and I would open up my note and I would say, "Oh yeah," and I would say, "How could I, do just one thing that would bring me joy in my day?" It's a great way to keep track and document and even put like dates so that you could say, back in 2025, it was this, but now I have something new on the list, or I'm no longer, now it's something else type of thing. So, bringing it all together in a nutshell, I realized that as leaders, we deserve to have not just career success, but also to have personal life satisfaction. And work is a component of life. So why is it that we even have this the segregation to begin with? I say it's time that we re-merge and have a whole comprehensive viewpoint of caring for our needs with us being human beings. And while yes, that looks great with the traditional self-care or self-love practices and activities, as the terms are currently, I would even encourage you to go beyond and think of different categories that would bring in, sorry, bring in joy, bring in creativity, whether you consider yourself to be, artistic or not. I'm not saying you have to go paint something, but like even if you were to dance, I can't dance, you guys. Vulnerability moment again. But or you cook, try a new recipe, or try a craft. Maybe you think you're not artistic, or sing, or, play some, learn a new instrument, something. Because it allows you to tap in and meet more needs than just if you were to do a physical activity like getting a massage or, sauna or, treating yourself to a movie, dinner. Like these are some of the more traditional ways. Well, that's yet another topic that I'm excited to share with you guys about that I, put together some years back. But so if I were to share with you a practical way to help you to reconnect with yourself for those who might be disconnected, those who could resonate with what I shared on this video, or simply have a deeper connection with yourself for those of you who may not, be at that point in your life right now, would be to think about, and I want to give full credit to my friend Michelle for this because I didn't come up with this activity, so I'm going to give credit where it's due. But think of a time in your life where you were just unbelievably unrestricted, happy and joyful and excited. And if it's not a situation like mine, where you could recreate the scene, I would say, and not definitely that everything has to be eat or drink sort of thing. I would definitely say just find a safe space, aka not while you're driving, close your eyes, and without having distractions around you, allow yourself to go back and recreate that scene as vividly as possible, down to sensory cues where what you might smell, feel, see, taste, what might have been a taste, um sort of thing here. Get down to the point where it's like you feel like you are there all over again, and when you feel yourself just start to smile, you got there. That's the sign. You have you have hit the sweet spot. And ask yourself, what gives me this level joy? And just pause and don't rush and try to answer it immediately. Give yourself the opportunity to let it just bubble up. I'm back to my apple cider. Bubble up to the surface again. And you could decide if you want to, break your tranquil moment, open your eyes, jot it down, especially if you feel like you might forget it. That's not going to take you completely from that state of joy. Write it down, keep a list nearby on hand that you could have access to so that, the next time you do decide to tune in on, a moment of self care, self love, or just to intentionally connect with it. It could be something that comes up faster, quicker, easier, and you could take it to the next level, having already established this foundation. Uh, yeah, and do it regularly. So set intentional blocks of times, whether, for me, like I said, I like to do 30 minutes, but maybe you might want to start with 10, 15 minutes sort of thing and name it something fun on your calendar. So for me, I use Brew Connect and I have a special color and I look forward to it and like, previous greats have advised us, treat it like an unbreakable VIP level meeting with yourself because you are VIP. Or like I love to use this term, you are legendary. You are legendary. And that's another video I want to dive into with you at some point real soon so that you could understand my definition of legendary leaders as opposed to, I guess, the dictionary level definition, which, you know, might make you think legendary might be a little much, don't you think? But no, we're legendary. All right. I hope that you enjoyed this talk. And if anything that I said resonates with you, if you happen to be a leader who has a heavy mantle, you have a lot on your plate, or you are currently feeling alone on your leadership journey, please come and join me on this journey as I share with you about Happy, Healthy, Transform and how we are sustaining leaders in their leadership lifetime, leadership longevity. Happy, Healthy, Transform, where we guide you into taking back your happy, taking back your health, and being transformed.